From Einstein to the Doomsday Clock, 50 facts in a story you'll never forget. I sit on the cracked wooden chair in my grandfather's library. Dust floats like isotope particles in the late afternoon light. The shelves smell of old paper and forgotten wars. Across from me, on a stool too big for her, sits Lily. She's 10, maybe 11. Her notebook is open, pencil ready, eyes wide like she's about to dissect a star. "Lily," I say, "you asked me about the bomb. Not the math. Not the politics. The story." She nods. "Tell me like it happened to someone. Like it could happen to us." So I begin. And I promise her 50 truths. Not opinions. Not myths. 50 heartbeats from the history of nuclear and atomic weapons. Each one a moment when a human hand touched the fire of the sun. Part 1, The Atom Before It Was a Weapon, 1896 to 1939. 1. Lily, picture 1896 in Paris. Henri Becquerel puts uranium salts in a drawer on top of a photographic plate. Days later, the plate is fogged. He realizes some rocks send out invisible rays all by themselves. He called it uranic rays. We now call it radioactivity. The atom had started whispering. 2. 2 years pass. 1898, a woman from Poland, Marie Curie, and her husband Pierre work in a freezing shed. They boil tons of pitchblende ore to find a speck of something new. They name it polonium, for her country, and then radium, for ray. Marie coins the word radioactivity. She wins 2 Nobel Prizes, and eventually the notebooks she used are still too radioactive to touch without protection. Lily, science begins with wonder, but it leaves traces. 3. 1905, a 26-year-old clerk in Switzerland, Albert Einstein, publishes a paper. In it, 3 symbols, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. His saying mass is just frozen energy. A gram of anything holds the force of a small city. He didn't mean bombs. He meant beauty. But the universe doesn't care what we mean. 4. For decades, the atom was thought to be like a plum pudding, positive mush with negative bits. Then in 1911, Ernest Rutherford fires alpha particles at gold foil. Most pass through, but some bounce back hard. He realizes the atom is mostly empty space, with a tiny, dense nucleus. If the atom were a stadium, the nucleus would be a fly at the center. That fly would hold all the power. 5. 1932, James Chadwick discovers the neutron. It has no charge, so it can slip into the nucleus without being pushed away. Now we have a bullet for the atomic fly. The door to the nucleus is unlocked. 6. December 1938, Berlin. Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann bombard uranium with neutrons. They expect heavy elements. Instead, they find barium, much lighter. They're confused. They write to Lise Meitner, who fled Germany because she was Jewish. In Sweden, she and her nephew Otto Frisch realize what happened. The uranium nucleus split in 2. They call it fission, like a dividing cell. And they calculate the energy released, enormous. Meitner understands immediately, this could be a weapon. 7. Within months, laboratories in Paris, Copenhagen, and New York confirm it. Leo Szilard, a Hungarian physicist, had been thinking about chain reaction since 1933. Now he sees it. One fission releases neutrons, which split more atoms, which release more neutrons. If you have enough uranium close together, it runs away. In 1939, World War II begins. The race starts before most people know there is one. 8. August 2nd, 1939. Einstein signs a letter to President Roosevelt. Silla drafted it. It warns that Germany could make extremely powerful bombs of a new type. Einstein later called it his one great mistake. But in 1939, with Hitler in power, it felt like the only choice. Lily, sometimes you open a door because you fear someone else will. Part 2, The Manhattan Project, 1942 to 1945. 9. 1942, the US Army creates the Manhattan Project. Not in Manhattan, mostly. The name is misdirection. General Leslie Groves is in charge. He picks a theoretical physicist named J. Robert Oppenheimer to run the science. Oppenheimer is brilliant, poetic, and haunted. He quotes the Bhagavad Gita. Groves picks him anyway. 10. The project is a nation inside a nation. 130,000 people. Secret cities: Oak Ridge in Tennessee to enrich uranium, Hanford in Washington to make plutonium, Los Alamos in New Mexico to design the bomb. Workers know only their small task. Loose lips sink ships, the posters said. Total cost, $2 billion in 1940s dollars, about $30 billion today. 11. December 2nd, 1942, under the squash court at the University of Chicago, Enrico Fermi builds Chicago Pile 1. It's a pile of uranium bricks and graphite blocks. Control rods made of cadmium absorb neutrons. At 3:25 p.m., Fermi orders the rods pulled out slowly. The neutron counters click faster. Then steady. He says, the reaction is self-sustaining. For the first time, humans started and controlled a nuclear chain reaction. They had tamed a star for 28 minutes. 12. 2 ways to make a bomb emerged. Uranium-235 and plutonium-239. U-235 is 0.7% of natural uranium. Separating it is like finding one specific grain of sand on a beach. They used giant machines called collutrons and gaseous diffusion plants at Oak Ridge. It took 2 years to get 64 kilograms. 13. Plutonium doesn't exist in nature. It's made by letting uranium-238 absorb a neutron in a reactor. Hanford built reactors on the Columbia River. The first gram arrived at Los Alamos in 1944. Plutonium is warm to the touch from its own radioactivity. The chemists called it the metallurgist's nightmare because it has 6 different crystal forms and expands when it solidifies. 14. Designing the bomb was harder than they thought. The uranium bomb was simple: shoot one piece of U-235 into another to make a critical mass. They called it Little Boy. They were so confident it would work, they never tested it. 15. Plutonium was different. If you used the gun design, the plutonium would start fissioning too early and fizzle. The yield would be a dud. So they needed implosion. Explosive lenses around a plutonium sphere would crush it evenly into a dense ball, making it critical. No one had ever done it. They had to invent new math, new explosives, new ways to measure millionths of a second. 16. July 16, 1945, 5:29 a.m., Jornada del Muerto Desert, New Mexico. The test is called Trinity. Oppenheimer bets $10 it won't work. The bomb sits on a 100-foot tower. They wait for weather. At 0, the sky splits. A light not of this world. The fireball is 200 meters wide. The steel tower vaporizes. The sand melts into green glass called trinitite. The blast is 21 kilotons. A blind girl 120 miles away asked, "What was that flash?" Oppenheimer remembers the guitar, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." 17. The energy of Trinity came from splitting less than a gram of matter. One paperclip of mass became a desert sunrise. That's $E equals MC$2 in the real world. Lily, physics isn't abstract. It's here. Part 3, the first use, August 1945. 18. August 6, 1945, 8:15 a.m., Hiroshima. The B-29 Enola Gay drops little boy. It falls 43 seconds. At 600 meters above the Shima Hospital, it detonates. 15 kilotons. Temperature at the hypocenter, 4,000 degrees Celsius. People are vaporized. Tiles on buildings boil. The blast wave moves at the speed of sound. Then the fire. A firestorm burns for 0.4 square miles. 19. Little boy contains 64 kilograms of U-235. Only about 0.7 kilograms fissioned. The rest was scattered. Efficiency, 1.1%. Even the worst bomb is terribly efficient at killing. 20. A boy named Sadako Sasaki was 2 years old, 1.7 kilometers from the hypocenter. She survived the blast. 10 years later she developed leukemia from radiation. She folded paper cranes, believing it would grant her a wish. She died having folded 644. Now children worldwide send cranes to Hiroshima. Lily, this is why we count. 21. August 9, 1945, 11:02 a.m., Nagasaki. The primary target was Kokura, but it was cloudy. They went to the secondary, Nagasaki. Fat Man falls. It's a plutonium implosion bomb, 21 kilotons. The terrain is hilly, so the destruction is less uniform than Hiroshima, but 40,000 die immediately. 22. In Nagasaki, the Urakami Cathedral was 500 meters from the hypocenter. It was the largest Catholic church in East Asia. Destroyed. A wooden statue of Mary survived, but her eyes were burned out. People called her Hibaku no Maria, the bombed Mary. 23. By December 1945, estimates are 140,000 dead in Hiroshima, 74,000 in Nagasaki. Many from burns, many from falling buildings, many from radiation sickness, a new disease. Vomiting, hair loss, bleeding gums, then death. The doctors didn't have a word for it yet. 24. August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announces surrender. He never uses the word surrender. He says the war did not turn in Japan's advantage and mentions a new and most cruel bomb. The debate still rages, did the bombs end the war, or was Soviet entry into the war on August 8 the real cause? Historians will argue forever. What isn't argued, the age of nuclear war began. Part 4, The Cold War and the Arms Race, 1949 to 1991. 25. August 29, 1949, Kazakhstan steppe. The USSR tests first Lightning, RDS-1. It's a copy of Fat Man, thanks to espionage by Klaus Fuchs and others. America's monopoly lasted for years. Oppenheimer opposes building the next bomb. He loses his security clearance. 26. November 1st, 1952, Enuetta Atoll. The US tests Skyvy Mike, the first hydrogen bomb. It's not a weapon, it's a building. 82 tons. It uses liquid deuterium at -250 degrees Celsius. Yield, 10.4 megatons. The island Eluge Lab vanishes. The crater is 1.9 kilometers wide. The fireball was 5 kilometers across. 27. A hydrogen bomb, or thermonuclear bomb, uses a fission bomb as a spark plug to compress and heat hydrogen isotopes until they fuse, like the sun. Fission splits atoms. Fusion joins them. Fusion releases more energy per gram. There's no limit to how big you can make one. 28. August 12, 1953, the Soviets test their first thermonuclear device, Jove-4. Its layer cake design, not as advanced as the US Teleulam design, but it works. The race is now about megatons. 29. March 1, 1954, Bikini Atoll, Castle Bravo. The US expects 6 megatons. It explodes at 15 megatons. They didn't know lithium-7 would also contribute to fusion. The fallout spreads over 7,000 square miles. A Japanese fishing boat, Lucky Dragon 5, is outside the danger zone but gets dusted. 1 crewman dies. The world learns a new word, fallout. 30. October 30, 1961, Novaya Zemlya. The Soviet Union drops the Tsar Bomba. 50 megatons. It was designed for 100 megatons, but they used a lead tamper to reduce fallout. The plane that dropped it had a 50% chance of survival. The shockwave circled the Earth 3 times. The mushroom cloud went into the mesosphere, 64 kilometers up. Window panes broke in Finland. Lily, that's like setting off 3,333 Hiroshimas at once. 31. 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days in October, the US discovers Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. Kennedy blockades the island. On October 27, a US destroyer drops practice depth charges on a Soviet submarine, B-59. The sub loses radio contact and thinks war started. 3 officers must agree to launch a nuclear torpedo. 2 say yes. Vasily Arkhipov says no. 1 man said no. That's why we're here, Lily. 32. After Cuba, the US and USSR installed a hotline, not a red phone, but a teletype, to talk directly. They also signed the 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty. No more tests in atmosphere, space, or underwater. Tests go underground. The Earth shakes instead of the sky. 33. 1968, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. 3 pillars: non-nuclear states won't get bombs, nuclear states will disarm eventually, and everyone can use peaceful nuclear energy. 191 countries join. It's the most successful arms control treaty ever. But for countries with nukes never joined: India, Pakistan, Israel, and South Sudan. North Korea joined, then left. 34. May 18, 1974, India tests Smiling Buddha. They say it's a peaceful nuclear explosion. The yield is 12 kilotons. The world is not amused. The Nuclear Suppliers Group is formed to control exports. 35. 1983, Stanislav Petrov is on duty in a Soviet bunker. The computer says 5 US missiles are incoming. He has minutes to decide. He thinks, why 5? If it's a real attack, it would be hundreds. He reports a false alarm. It was sunlight on clouds confusing the satellite. Again, 1 person stands between us and midnight. 36. 1986, The world's nuclear arsenal peaks 70,300 warheads. The US and USSR have enough to kill every city on Earth 20 times over. They call it overkill. The doctrine is mad, mutual assured destruction. Peace through the promise of total annihilation. Lily frowns. That's not peace, she says. That's a hostage situation. Part 5, Proliferation, Accidents and Modern Era, 1991 to 2025. 37. 1991, South Africa dismantles its 6 nuclear weapons. They built them in secret during apartheid, then decided to give them up before majority rule. It's the only case of unilateral nuclear disarmament. It can be done, Lily. 38. 1991, the Soviet Union collapses. Suddenly, 3,000 nuclear weapons are in Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine. Through the Nunlugar program and Lisbon Protocol, all are transferred to Russia or dismantled. Ukraine gives up the world's 3rd largest arsenal in exchange for security assurances. That promise would matter later. 39. May 1998. India tests 5 devices. 2 weeks later, Pakistan tests 6. The Hindu and Islamic bombs. The subcontinent is now nuclear. The tests are celebrated in both countries. The missiles that can carry them are named after medieval conquerors. 40. Israel has never tested, never admitted, never denied. It's called nuclear opacity. Based on the Vanunu leaks and satellite imagery, experts estimate 80 to 90 warheads. They're believed to be on submarines, planes, and Jericho missiles. The Samson option is their alleged last resort plan. 41. October 9, 2006. North Korea conducts its first nuclear test. Yield, less than 1 kiloton. A fizzle. But they keep going. By 2017, they test a 250 kiloton device, likely a hydrogen bomb. They now have ICBMs that can reach the US. A country with GDP less than Ethiopia has the bomb. Lily, power doesn't care about wealth. 42. We've had accidents. January 1961, Goldsboro, North Carolina. AB-52 breaks apart. 2 4-megaton bombs fall. One's parachute opens. 3 of for arming devices trigger. Only one switch prevented detonation. The Air Force found the uranium cut 20 feet deep. 43. January 1968, Thule, Greenland. AB-52 with 4 hydrogen bombs crashes on the ice. The bombs break open. Radioactive plutonium scatters. They recover most of it, but some ice was melted and unrecoverable. They still monitor it. 45. 1980, Damascus, Arkansas. A technician drops a socket during maintenance on a Titan II missile. It punctures the fuel tank. Hours later, the missile explodes, throwing a 9-megaton warhead 100 meters. It doesn't detonate. 1 person dies from the explosion, not radiation. Luck is not a strategy, Lily. 46. 2017, the UN passes the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. It bans developing, testing, producing, possessing, or threatening to use nuclear weapons. 97 nations sign. No nuclear state does. No NATO state does. The ban is law for those who already don't have them. 47. 2025, the Doomsday Clock is set to 89 seconds to midnight. Closest ever. The reasons: Ukraine war, nuclear threats, AI in warfare, climate change. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist says we are in a moment of historic danger. Today, there are about 12,121 nuclear warheads in the world. Russia, 5,580. USA, 5,044. China, 500 and growing. France, 290. UK, 225. Pakistan, 170. India, 172. Israel, 90. North Korea, 50. About 9,600 are in military stockpiles, the rest await dismantlement. 2,000 are on high alert, ready to launch in minutes. 48. A modern US B-83 bomb is 1.2 megatons. If detonated over Manhattan, the fireball would be 1.5 kilometers wide. Everything inside would vaporize. Heavy blast damage to Central Park. Third-degree burns to all of Brooklyn and Queens. Estimated deaths, 1.5 million. That's one bomb. 49. Nuclear winter theory. If 100 Hiroshima-sized bombs hit cities, the firestorms would lift 5 million tons of soot into the stratosphere. It would block the sun. Global temperatures could drop 1.25 degrees Celsius for years. Crops fail. 1 billion people could starve. We don't need 12,000 bombs to end civilization. We need 1% of them. 50. Lily, I close the notebook. So, you ask, what do we do? I don't have a simple answer. The atom was here before us. We just learned its name. Since 1945, no nuclear weapon has been used in war. That's 80 years. Maybe that's because of fear. Maybe because of sense. Maybe because of people like Arkhipov and Petrov who chose not to push the button. The bomb is a fact. But so are you. So is Sadako's crane. So is the choice to tell this story instead of living it. The last fact isn't about physics. It's about us. We invented the bomb. We can invent something else. Lily puts her pencil down. I want to write the next chapter, she says. The one where we don't use them. And I believe her.